Good afternoon. This is Carl. It is Thursday, the 2nd of October. This is going to be my second video of the week. The first was last Friday or Saturday. And I'm not going to make any excuses. It's getting hectic. The next couple, 3 weeks are going to get hectic. I'm going to do what I can fit in. We're going to go to part 2 for the week. This is the second video of the week. It's part 23 of the book of Joshua. We're in chapter 15, and we're going to start with verse 20. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah according to their families. I will say again, and I've repeated this before, said it before, and repeated it over, and I've got to take this in my life also. If I do not maintain obedience to laws of God and continue on a daily basis, the only way I can be obedient is by trusting in His power. When I feel the urge that I have to sin, no matter what it be, telling a person that they're number one in your language, or getting even, or harboring a feeling of revenge toward anybody, or a feeling of hatred, or bitterness, or unforgiveness, or lust, or whatever it would be, on a daily basis. And I'm telling you, I have failed at this. You have to daily and during the day, when these thoughts hit you and anything comes into your mind that is a beginning, a seed that could develop, and you know what I mean. You know you've had enough experience where a thought comes in. If you continue to think about that and continue in that line of thought, you know by experience that it can lead you to severe temptation. The only way that we can obey the law of God and have the promises that are predestined by God, if we follow Him, is by willingly asking for and believing by faith that the power of Jesus Christ, that He died and gave us in Colossians 2:15 over the powers of darkness of Ephesians 6:12, that they are our promises. There is no other way to defeat these powers of darkness and forces of evil. We are in the last days. Now, I guess every day since Adam and Eve has been a last day compared to the day before. But I'm saying, even the secular comments, even the secular news media, are even asking the question, could this be the last days of prophecy, or the last days of biblical doom, or Armageddon? And they don't even know, they're just repeating words. It is obvious that what I'm saying is this battle for born-again Christians, unlike much preaching and teaching, is not something that you put your feet up in the cloud of glory and you rest, whatever your means of rest is. And many denominations have their own little clique as to what works, the hot button, the hot number. There's only one button that works, and that's invoking and believing and trusting and living by faith in the power of Jesus Christ in your life, and nothing to do with yourself. I guess I'm so adamant and repetitive on this because I've lived in other ways trying religion, trying my goodwill, my good desire, my commitment, my what was it a lady told me, but I'm sincere. Romans 10:2 says you can be sincere but sincerely wrong, and you're going to end up in the same place, the lake of fire, if you do not repent. So the only way, folks, to get these, we're going to see where God, for each of these families and groups of people, has predestined a inheritance, a reward, a promised land promise for them if they continue to be in his favor. And the only way you get in that favor is the only way you stay in that favor is by trusting in what Jesus Christ did at the cross. No good intention, no sincerity, no strong commitment, no religious ability, no willpower, no education, no denominational preferences can do this. Enough. I've probably gone over this enough. The cities at the limits of the tribe of the children of Judah toward the border of Edom in the south were Kabzel, Eder, Jagar. I'm not even going to read all the names. It goes on and on and on for the from verse 20 through verse 32. In the lowlands, and it gives all the ones in the lowlands. All I want to do as we look, and this is again, I'm not going to go through the rest of this, of Joshua chapter 20. I'm not going to go through it again until we get to verse 63. So I'm going to skip Joshua chapter 15, 20 through 62. And because it's just giving the names of the places they inherit. That is not the important part. The important part is the way that we can claim this inheritance. It's not by naming it and claiming it. We claim this inheritance by staying true to God, which is impossible. It's impossible by any means other than your faith in the one who died on the cross. And his power working in you. My power never gets better. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants, verse 63. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out. But the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem to this day. And this chapter 15, verse 63. And I'm going to read chapter 16, verse 10. Chapter 16, 10. They did not drive out the Canaanites who dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites to this day and have become forced laborers. In fact, I'm going to read the highlights of 16. I'm only going to give you not all of the verse, not all of chapter 15 from verse 20 on. I'm not going to give you all of verse 16 except for verse 5 and verse 9 and 10. So let me give you that. In fact, let me make notes of that so it's in writing. But please, I'm doing this by intention because the point is I'm not looking to just recite scripture. I want to give you what I see is the important part of this. So we're going to do verse 20. We read 20 through 21. 20 and 21 in Joshua 15. And then we read in chapter 15, we read in verse 20 and we read 21. And then we skipped and went down to verse 63. And then I'm going to come to chapter 16. And we're going to do verse 4. Just bear with me. Verse 4 and 16. And verse 5. And then we're going to do verses 9 and 10. And I'll make a point that'll cover Joshua 15, the ending of it, as well as Joshua 15:63, and then the verses that we're going to read are 4, 5, 9, and 10 in Joshua 16. So again, I'm going to go ahead and read to you the Joshua 15:63 again, and then we'll continue with 16 and you'll see the point. I hope. Hope I'm doing this so it makes sense. As for the Jebusites and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem to this day. We have not been able to drive out our enemies because we really, number one, wanted them there. We enjoyed the temptation. We wanted the sin. We loved the sin more than we loved Christ. Or we were bought into a false Christianity which truly does not work, which is a church telling you that you can get better in any way, shape, or form, which you can't. You can only get better through the power of Christ. You're getting better as His power working in you. And you're going to see this. And these people never did pick up on it. After Joshua died, Judges went 450 years where they kept repenting and going into apostasy, repenting, going into apostasy for like 6 generations. So I'm going to read chapter 16, verse 4. The children of Manasseh and Ephraim took their inheritance. Verse 5, the border of the children of Ephraim according to their families was thus. And then it goes ahead and describes the inheritance that they were to have. Verse 9, the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities with the villages. But in verse 10 of chapter 16 goes with verse 63 of 15. They did not drive out the Canaanites who dwell in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites to this day, and have become forced laborers. The reason is because we don't destroy all the enemy. I currently have things in my life that I haven't totally destroyed, even though I talk about it. Why? Because getting it from the head down to here, who knows what the garbage I'm going through, and this is why daily I got to get up and I got to ask God, please. And folks, this is not a sermon. This is telling you an experience that I go through right now. Spiritually, I'm struggling to the point that I'm not saying that to invoke any pity or any worry or any concern about it. It's just that I'm telling you, I'm going through these struggles right now. I'm going to say more than I've been in my whole life. And they're repetitive and they're one after another. I am going to trust Romans 8:28, that God works all things for the good of those who love Him. Right now, I tell you, I can truthfully say that not all of this is good, but I'm going to trust He's going to work it out for the good. And the reason that I don't have the victory as soon as I could have had it, and the reason they did not drive out the Canaanites and the Jebusites, and the reason that Christians are oppressed by the enemy, even though the power of Christ could drive out any temptation every time we're tempted, is because we don't destroy all the enemy as they pop up its head. As you destroy the enemy and you look out in the field and you see another one pop up, blow its head off with the power of Christ. Because if you don't, it is going to erode you, eat you. It's going to eat you just like running water over a period of time. Running water will chip rock away. If we don't destroy the enemy and anything or anyone involved, and I don't mean you kill people. You just sever the relationship. Do whatever you've got to do if it's someone who is leading you astray. You've got to get the enemy out of your life, meaning the temptation, the evil thought, the evil whatever it would be. And if you allow it to live in us, within us, this will trouble you. This will not only trouble you, it'll make your life as a believer miserable. As Jimmy Swaggart said, not about this, but he made a comment, they're saved but miserably saved. You're not enjoying what did Christ say? That I came to give you life and life more abundantly, and that your joy may be complete. How? By having his joy. How do we have his joy? By total reliance on the power of God. And that's what we're doing with Jesus Christ, the total power of God who works in us. And if we do not follow this, folks, we're not going to have these inheritance the Bible promises. That's what irritates me so bad when I hear occasionally, and I accidentally go to a church that talks about name it, claim it, or just claim the victory. You claim the victory based on your steadfastness in faith and desire to not sin by the power of Christ living in you. And I'm not talking about people who want to sin. I'm talking about those who don't. Because there are a faction of people, and I can say in my life there were times where I didn't want to stop doing something wrong in the past. I'm telling you, I'm talking to the poor soul right now who is struggling, and you can't figure out why. You're doing your best. The problem is, stop doing your best and allow him to do what only he can do. And he accomplished in Colossians 2:15 against Ephesians 6:12, 2,000 plus years ago. Now we're going to go to chapter 17. It's all basically the same idea. There was also a lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph. Namely, for Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, because he was a man of war. Therefore he was given Gilead and Bashan. And there was a lot for the rest of the children at Manasseh according to their families. And then we come down. We read verse 1, 17, 1 and 2. And then I'm going to go down and I'm now going to read, go down to verse 4. Verse 4. It says, and they came near before Eleazar the priest, before Joshua the son of Nun, and the rulers, saying, the Lord commanded Moses, and that's healthy. They're going back to what another generation, and they know that that generation followed God, and they're saying, we're going to do the same thing. The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers. Therefore, according to the commandment of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among their fathers and brothers. And it tells what he gave to the tribe of Manasseh. So far, there's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong at here. And all the inheritances that we're going to see now, if you go and you continue to read now, past verse 4, and read all the way down through verse 15, 4 through 15, you will see that it's a statement of all the land that was to be given to different tribes and families. Now we have a little bit of a switch in verse 15 of chapter 17. Actually, verse 16, excuse me. Verse 16. I hope I'm not confusing you. The land now in 14 and 15 is the land for Ephraim and Manasseh. Again, according to what was told to Moses, what was told to Joshua by the Lord. In 16, but the children, here we go, put yourself in this position. When it says, but the children of Joseph says, the mountain country is not enough for us. Put Carl in here in verse 16. Whose fault is that? That is not God's fault. The mountain country is not enough for us. They're complaining here. And here, listen to what they said. The children of Joseph said, the mountain country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, both those of Beth Shean and its towns, and those who are of the valley of Jezreel. In other words, they're phrasing this as if it's God's fault that they're being harassed by the Canaanites. The reason they're being harassed by the Canaanites, go back to 16:10. They did not drive out the Canaanites who dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites to this day and have become forced laborers. Not only they dwell there, they're now working for you. But naturally, just like people take Genesis 1:2, that the earth was in chaos and say that's God's fault. No, it was sin that came into the world that caused the world to go into chaos. God in Genesis 1:1 made the world perfect. Now we're up to chapter 15. We've read 16. I'm going to start with 17. Joshua spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, you are a great people and have great power. You shall not have only one lot, but the mountain country shall be yours, although it is wooded. You shall cut it down, and its furthest extent will be yours. For you shall drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots and are strong. How do we do that? The way we do this is very simple. The way we do Joshua chapter 17, verse 17 and 18 is very simple. And it's getting back to trusting in the power of God. But you're not going to have that power applied if you're not continuing to obey his rules. You can't guard secret sin, hatred for someone, unforgiveness, bitterness, lust. Whatever it would be, you can't continue to willingly hold it. I didn't say that if you haven't eliminated it, you're not going to get the promises. That is an act of God. But if you have not allowed Jesus Christ to have that, and you don't want him to have it because you want to keep it, because someday you may need to rest in that little fun part of whatever the sin temptation would be. And don't anybody say that sin is not pleasurable or fun or whatever. It has to be, or no one would do it, because the return on investment stinks. I'm not saying you've got to conquer it 100%. First of all, you can't. But if you're in the process of allowing God and willing to submit to his authority and his discipline at times, and trusting in his power to overcome the enemy, the promises of the promised land will be yours, as long as you stay faithful to Jesus Christ as a Christian. Verse 18. Again, but the mountain country shall be yours. Although it is wooded, you shall cut it down, and the furthest extent shall be yours. For you will drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots and are strong. And you remember what they said earlier? In verse, where was it we read that these people, they were complaining that they have iron chariots and that they're very strong? As long as you'll go back and obey the commandments of God and your heart is right with God, you're not trying to hold secret sin, you're willing to give it to God and let Him strip you of it, you're willing to trust in His power to overcome all temptation, even though you haven't empirically, and I'll use the word empirically, accomplished getting rid of all this. You are still in the mind of God. You're doing what's right, and He will reward you. Now you can claim the promises that not based on some denominational hype or heresy, by your obedience to the Word of God only, not man. But this verse 16 of chapter 17 is comical in a very uncomical way. They're blaming God in verse 16 as to why the Canaanites are overcoming them, even though in chapter 16, verse 10, it says, you failed to drive out the Canaanites. But no, it's not my fault. I do the same things. I'm hoping I don't do them on a regular basis. I'm hoping the frequency has come way down. But don't think it's not within my fallen nature to do it if I'm not invoking, trusting, and believing on the power Jesus Christ gave me when He died on the cross. That's why I don't understand how people can willingly preach doctrine that's wrong when they're human and they know what goes through their mind and their heart. Be honest with others. Don't come across as, I've got this plan and I've got this way and I never go through problem anymore. That is a nonsense, folks. If they do that, it shows you that they could be already in the throes of serious trouble. Not saying they are, could be. All right, we've gone through verse 17 and 18 of chapter 17. Now in chapter 18, I think I'm going to stop right there because that's going to take us into another context, and that is the remainder of the divided land, and I want to start that and do it fresh. So in my next video, which will be the third video of the week, we're going to do part 24 of the book of Joshua. And we will start with verse 1, and we will read verse 1. And I'm going to read at the moment, I'm going to read through 10. And we may go further, that would probably go further than that, but I'm going to read 1 through 10 for sure. In fact, just looking over now I'm going to read a good part of chapter 18. The ones I'm omitting the verses from of each chapter 15, 16, and 17, it's because it was not things that were, in my judgment, that were turning points or valid points that God was making to the people where they needed to change. They needed to change their outlook. I'm telling you, for the one thing I'm going to carry with us tonight as I walk away, and I need it right now, and I'm not exaggerating to make this sound good, and that is I need to, when these little thoughts come into my mind, as it says in, in 2 Corinthians 10:5, anything that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. The knowledge of God is Jesus Christ. Anything that exalts itself above Him or against Him or instead of Him Bring it into the captivity of the obedience of Christ, not obedience of us to Christ. Bring it in, read 2 Corinthians 10:5. Bring your obedience into the captivity of the obedience of Christ, which is the same thing. It's the power of Christ working in me. Okay. I thank you for your time. This went better than I thought it would. I was a little apprehensive on starting because I knew I was going to jump around a little. I hope I didn't confuse anybody. If I did, just like some of you do, and I don't resent it or take a burn to it. If there's something that you want to ask or you feel I omitted, for what reason, just shoot a little note, at the end where you can add comments, and I will try to give you my best answer to it. Again, thank you for listening. I do appreciate your time and your interest.